Are you like me and frustrated with both sides in this election?
70% of the American public say they don't want this contest because neither of them are running on the things that are absolutely critical to Americans right now.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was.
Honestly, my entire life, I have never voted for a candidate. I've always voted against someone. And I think the main reason is the system, our parties. They're both, especially now, so polarized, so focused on how bad the other one is, on guiding us into hatred instead of being a country we can be proud of.
Well, I am a little bit further on the side of like, what is behind them trying to have these two sides pit against each other? Like there's a third party that's secretly creating this whole thing and might have something to do with corporations. I don't want to say
or the people. Or honestly, the people behind the corporations. When we use the word corporation, I feel like it's so impersonal. It's like some company. There is no such thing as just the company doing something. It's the people that are running the companies, the people that are making the most money. And what they're doing, yes, they've turned both parties and most candidates into their, pawns, as well as the media.
It's a part of the system, and I love how you look at it personally at people, and that's great perspective. But I lay in bed at night and I think about it as it actually being like AI, and that the laws that are in place are like forcing the people to do the things they're doing, because legally as a corporation they're not allowed to put clean water above profit. They're not allowed to put human health above profit. It's in the law. And so to me, it's like the AI already took over in 2000. We're in the post-apocalyptic times. And I have this like theory about it that I think about a lot. But would you just help me get back to earth and ground into some reality? There are humans making some choices, helping. But
yeah, and that's what makes it scarier to me, is that like I feel like if we think of it as AI, as corporation, it's not so real. But like, why do we trust politicians and these people that are behind the corporations? Do you trust everybody you know? Has anybody ever cheated on you? Has anybody ever hurt you in your business or in your personal life? Do you trust people you know? If you don't even trust all the people you know, why does our country, like our populace, trust politicians and media and all of the lies that are coming at us?
Well, part of the problem is half the country stopped trusting the results of certain contests.
Finally.
So there's a lot of less trust. There's a lot of that.
Finally.
Interesting perspective. I like how we're on different sides of this coin. Like I thought we were going to agree a lot, but we can go on and on about all these things, because I'm really looking at it from a machineristic point of view, and that the things they put in place starting in the 70s of these these things that are attached, the housing, the labor board, the agricultural boards, the pharmaceutical FDA, and I don't feel smart right now to like go through the names of them, but I have a video we could watch where they walk through DC, and it's really interesting. So hold on.
We're meant to be advisory agencies, provide information to the American public. Here's best practices, here's some transparency on this or that. Over time, they sort of morph and grow into something more powerful. Curious fact about the CDC, any employee that goes to work there has a 50% chance of sometime in their life then working for Big Pharma. One of the large
50%?
50% of the employees here who are governed with dictating public health standards in the United States will go on to work for Big Pharma.
Okay, where are you getting that number?
I can send you links for the...
Okay, I'm going to put the link in the description.
Yeah, I'm happy to give you a whole lot of data.
Okay, cool.
Revolving door, we were talking about HUD. If you look at Merck and you look at several of the big pharma companies and their leadership that they send in at executive levels at the CDC, that's pretty amazing as well.
So the incentive structure is, for many, put your time in, You're in a government job. You're going to get a pension. Then down the road, potentially,
You're going to get something much better.
you got the deal with the company that's
Yeah.
going to pay you way more.
Now, there's a 1-year cooling off period. Most people, that applies to most federal agencies. Once you leave, you have to wait 1 year to work for a regulated community that, you know, would be subject to the government body that you were employed for. But here's a more curious fact about the CDC. It's one of the few agencies where Congress said, not only is the agency good, we're going to allow you to create your own nonprofit. So it has a nonprofit group on the side, the CDC Foundation. Who are its main sponsors, might you guess?
Who, Benjamin? Who?
Yeah, Big Pharma. So Roche, the maker of Tamiflu, put several $100,000 into that.
So on and so forth. You get the flavor, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of like the head of the FDA, worked for Monsanto. And
Well,
Monsanto,
he goes
against the law,
yeah.
Against the law and our constitutional rights, can patent seeds.
Yes. Oh, the seed patenting life. Oh, don't get me started on that. Oh, yes. And the only candidate talking about it is RFK.
RFK.
Nobody else has ever talked about it, and on a political level at that scale.
Absolutely. And it just, as I watch him, I cannot believe all the things he talks about are the things I've been passionate about for so long. I'm like, the more I watch, the more I'm amazed. Like I said, I've never voted like for anybody in my life. I've always voted against somebody. And all of a sudden there's somebody that maybe I don't agree with everything. Who am I ever going to agree with everything? But I cannot believe how many things I am just like so excited about when I hear him talk about it. Like food, all the poisons in our food. I mean, and how like diseases, like chronic diseases, have increased so much over the last 30 years when they've been adding all these additives, not just chemicals, but like with pesticides, but that pesticide is not an ingredient in our bread, and the vitamins. Who knows what the sources of their vitamins that they're saying, oh, buy our cereal because it has vitamin B6 in it. Like, what's the source of their vitamin B6? How do we know that's a pure source? It's not, like there's so many ways in which these big companies can get away with things like putting on a cereal, this is good for your heart. If you put that on a food supplement, the FDA will shut you down.
Well, this is what they're scared about.
Because you're a big company.
They're scared about this being happening with AI, and that the corporations have taken over the food. And it just all goes back to the corporations. I look at it from a very like the AI is winning. And we're at the mercy of AI and artificial intelligence, in the sense that we created corporation law and we created all these things that now rules reality, and it's not human. The laws that have enabled all this, and that we haven't stopped this intertwining between the government agencies and the corporations. We haven't stopped it. We haven't stopped monopolies. We have conglomerates galore, and that's a whole nother like capitalism. Like people are like, oh, I'm pro capitalism. Somebody just lost in the Congress on the left, who said capitalism is over, nobody wants it, and he just lost his seat in the Senate. He was part of the squad that was super left wing, and it's that we don't define capitalism. It's like what he's talking about is corporatism. Is there a word for it?
Yeah, because that about capitalism is like, that's a broad statement. I see what you mean when corporatism, and the main reason is because they seem to be above the law. But the thing I want to remind us all of is that people are running the corporations and people are working for the corporations. I used to work for an aerospace company. And one day, as I was coming into work, right at the security guard shack, they had a petition for me to sign. And they literally were saying, sign this to keep your job. And I looked at the petition. It was for selling arms in the Middle East. It was to make it legal to sell arms to the Middle East. And I'm like, this people from the very bottom can make a difference, and I think that's what RFK talks about a lot. You know what? During that debate, when when he was asked a question about drugs, for instance, the other two candidates talked about borders, border restrictions, and all this stuff, and what he talked about was the real root problem, which is the demand. There's the law of supply and demand, that those drugs can come in the country. They're going to come in the country as long as there's demand. But the reason there's demand is because the people, the real people, not the companies, the real people are depressed. They're disillusioned. They don't see a future. They can't even buy a house. Jobs don't pay for cost of life anymore. And they're turning to drugs. That's the real issue. And that's where he wants to go back to. My perspective is he wants to go back to like the people. He wants to get away from the big machines, the big corporations that, sending stuff overseas so we save money, and take care of the people here, give them jobs, bring industry back here so that we take care of our people. And that's what will make our country strong again.
Yeah. I love that he says that. I look at it. I love that this every time with how boring it would be if it's just like, I see it exactly the same way as you. I like solving the problem of like, sure, let's help people, but the planet's dying. We're fucked. We're gonna, excuse my language. We are managing grief on levels we've never had before, with mass extinctions and possible future ones, and just seeing things with our own eyes. It's hard. So that may not change the demand. He may not solve that, but I'm all about like solving the crime that goes along with that. What's going on, get rid of the cartels, like legalize the stuff, like legalize it, solve it that way. But as a presidential candidate, he can't speak that view and have a chance. Like, there's too many people you would.
Well, actually, he believes in legalizing marijuana on the federal level in order to raise taxes. Biden. And what he will do with this money is create rehabilitation centers throughout the country that are free for people to attend to treat their depression and their PTSD, anxiety, whatever it might be, at no cost. And this is treating the root cause.
I love that. And using marijuana money, which he can legalize and won't piss off it's a good time to do that. But he can't legalize everything else and stop the cartels from existing by legalizing cocaine and other drugs.
That's such a difficult topic because it sounds like it would work.
He can't put that on a platform politically. Like, I'm just saying, like, this is my opinion, but I don't want him talking like me because that's not going to help me get him in the office. Like, I'm not.
But I also don't know. I don't necessarily believe that would work because I think the immediate repercussions would be too large. I get the idea of it working, but if you just legalize everything, the immediate repercussions would be very bad, I think. But what I'm saying is, like, what he's saying is, you take away the demand. Like, they're going to supply. And they have to break the law to supply, and it becomes a big mess. But if you take away the demand, then you won't need the supply. Yeah. And he uses this approach on a lot of different things, like childcare. Like in the debate, it was so cool. Like, I've never heard this perspective before. I learned from that debate. I have never learned something in a presidential debate before.
Well, I want to learn it too. Let's play his childcare bit of the debate.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
In history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
They barely answered any of the questions.
Back to their original question. CNN has somehow found a child care crisis in America. Somehow Americans raised children for years. Now there's a crisis because it costs too much. Is that something government did or can fix?
Well, the reason there's a crisis is because the economy with the middle class is gone. So in order to pay for a home, you need 2 jobs or 3 jobs. So oftentimes I'm running into people who have 4 jobs between the couples. The couple used to be when you and I were growing up, mom stayed at home or a parent stayed at home and took care of the kids. That doesn't happen anymore now. Both parents, in order to hold on to that home, need to be working. So we do have a child care crisis in this country. And it's because of the destruction that both these men contributed to of the American middle class. And neither of them is offering any way to restore the middle class. Child care for Black Americans, John, is 37% of income, a single child. Oh, and nobody can afford that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to wind down, I'm going to balance our budget, which is what President Trump promised to do, but I'm actually going to do it because why? Because it's existential. If we don't have the courage to do that, no matter what the cuts are, we have to do that or we are going to cease to exist as an influential nation. And but we cannot cut our way out of this debt. We have to build new industry. We have to build GDP. And one of the most efficient ways of building GDP is through childcare, through guaranteed childcare. There's a 22 times return on investment. As I said, every $1 million we spend on military weapons creates 2 jobs. Every $1 million we spend on childcare creates 22 jobs. And we need to grow our way out of this budget death spiral. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by providing childcare, by taking away $500 billion from the military.
Back to the CNN debate.
See, like I never would have thought of actually like childcare helping the economy. Like it helps the child, but it also helps the economy. And then if the child is getting, decent child care at a low cost that's subsidized by the government, then the parents can, focus more on paying their other bills so that they and the child have a better life. The parents are less stressed and maybe they're better parents because of it. Because nowadays, like, maybe I'm monopolizing because I'm pretty passionate about this, but
no, please.
I've spent time even with friends, and I don't judge them because I'd probably be the same way. It's stressful to make enough money to take care of a child. You get home, you're stressed out, you're exhausted. Who's the babysitter? Who's watching the child? Usually the TV or the video games. And then if when you're at work, if you can't afford to pay childcare, maybe it's another kid watching your kids. Like I've heard of like 11-year-olds watching 5-year-olds. I've heard of or maybe it's a senior, like a senior citizen that is not able to hardly do anything anymore, who's taking care of the kids. Once again, who's the babysitter? Really, it's the TV or the video games. What an amazing thing if childcare becomes subsidized. What can it do for the future of our world?
Yeah. I love your beautiful perspective on that. Sorry, there was a thing there. You're so loving and nurturing to care and to look at it like that.
Well, and I just heard a politician being loving and nurturing and caring for the first time ever, and like putting a thought in my head that I never even thought of how it not only would help the children, but it would help the economy.
I feel like if Marianne Williamson saw this, she would probably be really offended because she ran for office and she probably has some caring.
Why would she be offended?
I'm joking, but like because you said he's the only politician that ever did that, and she ran.
You're right. No, you're right. Like,
but I get it. He's a Kennedy. He seems more like a real politician versus like a new age person running for office.
Yeah, I sometimes speak in extremes and I shouldn't. But like, I mean, I should say he's the closest to becoming president that I've ever seen, because Marianne, she's been in primaries. And
you didn't get it.
This is like
she's way higher,
closest to actually becoming president.
Yeah. You saved
it. Speaking of that, one of the other things that he said in one of the videos I watched is that by not holding primaries, the Democratic Party is not democratic. I mean, that's like
not
a communist thing to do. They didn't even have
I thought we weren't going to complain, but it's totally not democratic. Nobody wants this guy to run for office. Nobody has wanted it. He said he would only do one, and we have no say. And they are running on the platform of saving democracy. Vote for a senile, who knows who's pulling the strings, like, to save democracy. So it's such a red flag of like who's in control. And then the bit about CNN, maybe, oh, you didn't see the beginning of the debate, or I mean, he was going to sue CNN. The opening of the debate, where he's like, "This is the example of corporocracy." Did you see it?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't, but I know that because I missed the beginning, but I know that he was just as qualified as the other candidates to be in the debate, and they still didn't put him in. But I want to finish real quick. What I was going to say is he actually mentioned Marianne Williamson. He was like we would have had a chance to choose someone like Marianne Williamson, and he named a few others, and that's what made me remember how he said. And I don't think that's necessarily complaining. It's just a statement. Like it's literally not democratic for them not to give that party a choice in their candidates.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a clip?
Yeah, I think I have one.
CNN is making tens of millions of dollars from this debate. And so they have an incentive to go ahead and collude with the two presidential candidates whose main purpose was to keep me off the stage. And again, this isn't a personal issue. This is something that's important for our democracy, because Americans feel like the system is rigged. And this collusion with a corporation, or profit corporation, that both those campaigns are going to be pumping in tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising. So it's all a big payoff. This is exactly the kind of merger of state and corporate power that I'm running in order to oppose. And the Americans believe that the system is rigged against them, because it is. And this is an example of how badly rigged it is.
Mr. Kennedy, we're following the rules here. Your 2 minutes
You can
are
do
up.
whatever you want with the minute that
It's
we
your
give you.
show. You should get an
wanna follow up.
introduction.
I got to follow.
So, like, to summarize that, this is where I'm really passionate. This is where my big thing, like, I'm sorry, stop having kids. I won't say any more about that. But this is where I'm really passionate. I'm glad he's not saying what I have to say. That's why I'm not running. But yeah, CNN is owned by this and by that and this conglomerate and this conglomerate. And I think Bayer owns it all, which owns Monsanto. I don't know. I've got it all confused. I don't care. But they have no reason to let RFK have a platform, because they are running a business. They are running a business. They are selling pharmaceuticals mostly. I watch cable news. It is 90% pharma ads. I've worked on pharma ads. I've made money from pharma. So I'm in the system. I'm in it. I'm not, I want to talk about it and complain, but I also want to own that, like, I'm here. I made money working on a commercial. Like, you know, I don't blame the individuals as you do. Like, I needed to pay my rent, you know, and the commercial paid my rent. So that got a sidetrack. But anyway, back to corporations owning everything, you know, that he wasn't allowed. He was going to sue CNN. And I guess he didn't end up suing them. Maybe there wasn't any legal terms. They can produce any show they want, but that they won't let him in. That's just the example of corporate control that I love him for standing up against that more than anything.
Yeah, and like one of his biggest platforms is, you know, that we've lost the middle class, and he talks a lot about how the corporations are part of that, as well as like military spending, like because the military spending, a lot of that corporations are involved in, of course.
100%. To me, I keep going back to the corporations. The military isn't just like, the generals aren't like, we need money. No, the arms manufacturers are the ones that are lobbying in DC. The generals aren't lobbying in DC going, hey man, help us out with the military. Can you give us some more money? Because the way DC works, that military guy has nothing to offer the politician. That military guy doesn't make $50 million a year and have a few $10 million to share on that guy's campaign. So the whole system is so rigged. The lobbying is only being done by where there's big money. There's not lobbying for like, let's get everybody's front yards to grow food. There's no lobby for that. There's no big corporate gain if everyone learned how to grow their own food.
Yeah.
So it's not military
even bake or cook their own food, you know.
Right. I'm not even blaming the military anymore, because it's the corporations making the money that is pushing that machine to grow, not
absolutely.
Like
and
the strategic guys
that the military is protecting us is such a guise, because really what most of our spending has been on in the last 75 years with military is regime changes. And like in different countries that really have all blown up and the countries ended up worse off because of the regime change that we supported with trillions of dollars. And then the countries are worse off. A lot of civilians are hurt, and they might have some debt to the Americans so that the United States feels like they're in control. But it's blowing up now because a lot of these other countries are getting stronger, and they're finally having a voice in the world, and the world is starting to get angry at America for all this interference.
Well, that's been going on for 60, 70 years, and they've been mad a long time. And
yeah, but these countries, like I said, they're becoming more of a voice. So yes,
yeah, and people know about it now. It used to be such a fringe awareness, like there was the Economic Hitman that was written in the 90s based on a guy who worked with the CIA and the corporations. And they come in and they go, hey, give us all your land and resources and we'll build you a road. And they go, no. And then they call in like the military, like, oh, you don't like what we have to do? We'll just take over your government and then we'll do it anyway. Like, and that's done all over the world, and it's been done like that for so long. And it started.
Well, they promised the new regime. We're gonna help you. We're gonna do.
We'll build two roads for the same resources, but
then
it's the same thing that with that little guy walking down DC talking about HUD, the housing industry that's supposed to protect homeowners is in bed with mortgage companies. And he goes on that it's like a long show where he keeps going building to building, and then these people work there, and then the CEOs go back and forth, and then none of these agencies are here to help people anymore. They're all corporate. And it's the same thing with what you're talking about going around the world. It's that same thing that we've just regime change for corporation's sake. It's all comes back down to the corporation. Why do we want a regime change? Because we need to grow all those bananas. Because that's why they called it a banana republic from way back. That's where it comes from.
And if anybody out there is starting to say we're conspiracy theorists, I just want to throw something out there. Like, have you never conspired? If you're a parent, you conspired to how to get your kid to go to bed at night. If you're a friend, you might have conspired with other friends about how to help your friend. Like conspiracy is everywhere. So just because we might see a conspiracy out there and label it, we're called conspiracy theorists. I mean, it's all over the place. Industries conspire to how to make more money. Corporations conspire how to make things cheaper so that they can make more money. It's everywhere. What is this whole thing about conspiracy theorists? If you don't believe in conspiracies, then your eyes are closed and your ears are shut. They're everywhere.
That's beautiful. I love that. I wish that was full screen and take that. It actually makes me, listening to you talk like that, makes me think we should have some sessions like this that are reaction videos and talking, but also like maybe a couple of classes of just like, what is a conspiracy and what is it to conspire and what is capitalism and what is a monopoly? And I'll do it with less condensation. Condensation.
I have some condensation going on here.
Like, I don't know if we could do it. If we could do it for 5-year-olds, because I got to get the bitterness out. Like for kids who don't know what's a corporation, they take your money.
Well, the truth is, like, I don't even know. Like, how many of us really know the details of these things? And that's one thing I really like about RFK is that he has those facts in his head. Like, he'll literally start spewing out numbers. He's not watching cue cards. I've seen him interviewed, like in some of the videos, he's on a zip line being interviewed. He's definitely not watching cue cards. And he's like popping out these numbers and facts because he's an attorney. I mean, he's been, suing corporations for, for a lot of years.
He sued Monsanto, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. He had one of the biggest lawsuits against him and won and all this stuff. Like, that's when I first started to really, when I heard that's when I first started to believe, because you could say these words and say it, go, here's an angle to get into power. But when I found out, like, before running for president, he actually spent his time and money fighting Monsanto, and not for his own
oil companies too. Like, I saw a list at one point, oil companies. I mean, he's not afraid to go after these people that sometimes I feel like are ruling the world. They're, and I just love it. And I don't know why I feel like changing the subject because I was talking about how he has these numbers in his head. Oh my God, like, here's a really striking number. Like, in 2000, I tried to memorize them, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. He said in 2013, they did this survey for a very, large survey of people under the age of 35 in this country, and are they proud of their country? And it was 85% were proud. They did the same survey this year. This is people under 35 who are proud of this country, 18%. 18% are proud of their country. That is crazy. I mean, I can't believe that it's that high in 2013, but
yeah. But we're still under the brainwashing of that we're the greatest country in the world, and that's fading away as these ideas that we've been talking about today are becoming more mainstream. And that's what's so exciting to me, is it's like, I've thought this way forever, you've thought this way forever, and I'm sure there's others, but it's like now there's a lot of people that are getting exposed to it that never knew about it. I mean, I learned about it in the 80s. I had a really radical government teacher in high school who knew all this stuff. She was like, George W. Bush ran the CIA, who took out countries, innocent countries, to steal their resources. He has blood on his hands, and he's running for president. And that's the world we live in. That's okay. That's okay. He could do that. Iran-Contra thing happened in the 80s. I was like awake to it then. So I had been sitting here like for a long time. And then RFK comes around. And my point was, when I made that video a few months ago and I shared it, and I did a speech at an event with like 100 people, and I did a campaign thing for him at the Relateful camp. And people were coming up to me afterwards and going, "Oh, you're telling people to vote for RFK." And I'm like, I am not telling anybody to vote. I never said vote. Vote didn't come out of my mouth. I'm excited that there's a man or a person in the world saying these ideas, these concepts, and I want you to hear them. And then you do whatever you want. Stay home on November 7th. I don't give a shit. Because to me, when we have the ideas and we're connected with ideas, that's what's going to change the world. Doesn't matter who's running, who's in charge. Because
again, it's back to the individual. We've been giving it away to the parties and all these and candidates and politicians for way too long. It's about like how we think, how we talk, how we interact with each other, how we take care of our children, all the stuff. And then that'll and I do, I do hope people vote for him. I'm gonna be like upfront, like, I would love to have,
I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, because if the other guy,
I'm not going to tell you what to do.
No, but I'm just saying, if everybody votes for RFK on the wrong side, and then another guy who wants to execute people runs, I don't use their names. I don't want to talk about them, but like, I don't know. I think on the day you decide what's best for the future. But right now,
okay. Having said this, can we play a clip?
National poll just came in, and the results are staggering. In a three-way race between Biden, Trump, and Kennedy, Biden loses. In the head-to-head match between Biden and Trump, Biden loses. In a head-to-head between Biden and Kennedy, Biden loses. But in a head-to-head between Trump and Kennedy, Kennedy wins.
I 100% agree, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to get involved. That area of the number game, I'm not as I'm not as passionate about. I'm passionate about that people are thinking, if everybody gets these ideas that Kennedy's saying, because he's speaking freely outside of the machine for once, finally. That to me, once if that hits mainstream, if he gets enough information shared, it's going to change the whole game completely. That's what I think. Because it doesn't matter who's in power to me. I mean, it does a little bit, but it's like if there was a way to get the corporate control and to stop the monopolies and to stop this food, the thing you're talking about with the vitamins, and like it's almost like there probably are laws with the FDA that people can't make bread without thiamine and folic acid and mass produce it with approved. I mean, it's just insane what they're doing. And if you're a binge eater, you're overdosing on vitamins.
Yeah, and who would have thought
Binge
of that?
eater.
I mean, there's just so many little things.
I eat the whole box of cereal. It's candy to me, and I just did it. I did Cheerios just the other day. And have you heard about my test? Like I did cornflakes from Trader Joe's and cornflakes from Kellogg's. Did I tell you about this? I binge it. I eat the whole box. Well, cornflakes from Trader Joe's isn't full of vitamins. Somehow they're like, somehow they got out of that rule, or how, I don't know how that is happening.
I don't think it's a rule. I think people think if they put the vitamins on, people are going to buy it because it's true. Because people aren't taking their vitamins, they're not eating their vegetables. They need vitamins, so they're like, "Ooh, I can get it and eat something, processed."
The same people really even know that there's vitamins anyway. But if too much of that stuff for me makes me a very agitated, aggressive human being, it affects me very, very negatively. And I did two, as a scientist, a big study of myself, one. But to me, it's a fact. Like the folic acid cornflakes, I really think it's folic acid. And I've watched some science-based podcasts on what folic acid can do to some people's brains, not everybody. But I'm sure if I could find that and put that in a reaction video with my cornflake story, because I'm one of those people that too much folic acid makes me crazy. I can have 1 or 2 pieces of bread in a normal loaf of bread, but if I binge it, I'm like,
it's more serious than that, because some people are actually allergic to certain B vitamins. And so for them, it could actually be very toxic. So it's much more than just what you're experiencing.
It's potentially. So bad. And it's so hard to get food that's not full of poison. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
And we have a presidential candidate talking about that.
I know. That's just so cool that they're talking about it. And that and I'm stoked that Biden's so lame, because it's giving RFK more exposure and more people are interested, because logical, smart people cannot literally think that we're going to save democracy by putting a puppet in, like a handheld that doesn't function. That doesn't sound like
this debate definitely got RFK on the news, because the mainstream media is actually putting them on, just little snippets, but at least people are becoming aware, because before that they were refusing to put him on. Literally.
Well, the DNC was following him around.
They wouldn't bring him on.
DNC has been scared of him, and they've been following him around doing a smear campaign. And then Trump's people did some stuff too they're both scared of him. Both sides.
Yeah, because he's not on one side or the other at all. He has to correspond with both sides, and that's another thing I love about him. I'm so sick of being categorized. I'll give my opinion about one issue, and somebody be like, "Oh, you're just like the far right," and I'll give my opinion about another issue. "You're the far left." I'm like, I am neither. I have opinions of my own. Thank you. I'm, and that's what he is too. And even if you don't agree with his opinions, heck, at least he's not just stepping into a box just to get elected. He's not being like, okay, I'm just going to immediately adopt all these elections. The Republican candidate used to be a Democrat. He used to fund the Clintons, right? But he realized where to step into in order to get votes. And that's what he did. It's not his opinions.
No, he just likes to get votes. And he's a good competitor.
On both sides. It's happening on both sides. They're not, and they're not giving their actual knowledge and opinions. They're giving what's going to get them votes.
And when they're so far up like that, they're just being surrounded by people telling them stuff. They don't even know what's really going on in a lot of ways. They're in the system that they can't even see. Not necessarily both of them, but they're in the system and they can't even see the banks don't run the show, but in that world they do. Like, oh, I gave student debt and I did this or that. It's like, you're hooking up banks with that shit. I bet you the banks made way more money on whatever deals he gave, like to save student debt. Like he's putting money in his buddy's pockets. Like it's all so intertwined that you can't see it.
Another thing I learned in the debate is that, RFK is going to seal up parts of the wall in metropolitan areas. So the wall between Mexico and the United States in metropolitan areas actually makes sense to me. We don't need people just walking right across the border in a metropolitan area. In the rural area, that wall scares the shit out of me because of all the wildlife and the how they need to go south for the summer. For the winter. I live in Arizona. I live fairly close to the border, and the wildlife travels into Mexico regularly to survive because, even we do get snow here, we do get cold, and they go south and then they come back north. And he does not support putting the wall the whole way across, but he does support putting it in metropolitan areas. So it's not like he's definitely not one side or another. He's taking ideas from both sides. He's praising things that both sides have done, and doing what he thinks is best for the people. That's the difference, because I'm not sure those sides care about the people. I'm just not convinced of it. But he's like going back to the roots of our country. He's doing what he thinks is best for the people. But he's also willing to listen to other people's opinions and change his mind.
I don't know. You know who Charles Eisenstein is? One of his advisors. I don't know if you know who that is. He's like a very cool kind of a spiritual teacher who has talked about, our society in the terms of like chasing money and looking at, he like presents he talks really slow. I wanted to do reaction videos for him too, but no, he has a great, and even Charles Eisenstein was saying he surrounds himself with people who think differently than him, and they don't agree on everything, Charles and RFK, and it's really just
there's actually another one of those campaign videos is a guy that works for him, and he says that RFK will not only hired him even though they didn't agree on everything, but he also asked him to give him all his opinions so that he could learn from them. And that alone is amazing. And speaking of, you mentioned a spiritual advisor, did you know he meditates every day? and I found a video of him with his ravens, these ravens that live nearby, and he says they come meditate with him every morning. This is one of the most important things you can do for your health is meditate. And he is a man that takes care of his health, and he cares about the health of us too. Like, he wants to promote not just healthy food, but healthy lifestyle. One of the statistics he threw out there was, when he was a kid, it was almost unheard of to think of a child with diabetes. And now it's like, I forget the percentage, but it's huge, children with diabetes. Because people have lost touch with how to take care of their health.
Yeah.
And of course, the other two are arguing about which one is better at golf. The debate was hard to watch. I enjoyed the RFK sections, but the rest of it was like, oh. In fact, it was the debate. It was the debate of, who did the first George Bush run against? Reagan? I know that they were in the same party. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The debates started way back then. They started
like Mondale or something, like Mondale.
They were bashing each other. It was like just crazy. And that was one of the things that made me stop watching the news and watching TV, because it was like, I'm not learning anything about you guys. I'm just learning how much you want the other person to lose, and how many bad things you can say about this other person. And then
Well, they write bad
coupled
things.
with the media conjecturing, like they're not delivering the news and they're not questioning people. They're not asking the right questions. They're bringing up the facts. Like when a politician lies, the media should be like, well, what about this? Or look, here's a video of you saying the exact opposite. Isn't that what the media should be doing? But instead, they're just going along with it and then making conjectures about like, well, what would you do if, ah, ah. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh no, I was just zoning out. I was just thinking about all the people who like fear for their lives if who've been spun to believe that the other side is going to like take away rights for LGBTQ, RSTD. And you're like those people are really afraid. And they saw the debate. And I was just thinking about them. Like,
yeah.
Like they're so scared.
And I get that. And
are they?
I have to say that both sides have taken away rights. I mean, we've lost as many rights under both parties, just different kinds of rights.
What did we just lose in the last 4 years? I'm curious because I don't
know. The rights that we lost during the COVID crisis are insane. Right. The rights to freedom of speech, the rights to gather in together, the rights to practice your spiritually in a church, the rights to on Facebook and all the government threatened social media companies and said they would shut them down if they didn't censor content. We lost so many rights during COVID, and that was from the other party. So like both parties are attacking our rights big time. And I believe that this third option, he's all about choice for everything, not just certain things. For like, in my impression is we should have a choice like our Constitution granted us for everything.
Take it.
Yeah, I'm just blown away. I'm blown away. Like you're the one that first told me about him, and because I don't watch the news, so I was like, just you told me a few things, and I was like, yeah. And then I didn't really watch anything, and then then when you said you wanted to talk about this today, well, the debates, I watched that, and I've watched a few things over the last few weeks, but when you said you wanted to talk about this today, I watched so many videos in the last 24 hours, and I'm still high on it. I'm just like, oh my God, like, how can I possibly agree with another human being on so many things? And this person is actually like, because I'm very out of the norm. Like I believe in things on both sides. I'm that's just the way I am. Like I'm a free thinker, and so is he. But I'm okay with other people having their own opinions, and so is he. And choosing something different than I want to choose, and so is he. And that's my impression. And it seems to be he's stood behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, free thinker, stuff on both sides. Me too. I mean, I got stuff on all sides. Nobody even talk like climate change, and then policies. Oh, we set these policies for this, and then the other one's like, I like clean air and water, and no politician is talking about how to do like climate change action that makes sense, like growing your food in your yard, like in areas that have solar capability. The government puts it on all government buildings and parking lots. You don't take a single tree out for solar, and there's no solar farms in the middle of the desert destroying the desert with glass and leftover stuff and harming the animals. It's just what we're doing is complete corporate greed. So when they're like, oh, we're doing the zero emissions Paris Accord, that's just a different form of corporate greed going, we want to move the corporations into lithium mines and manufacturing of wind turbines and manufacturing of solar cells. And it's still not, to me, the thing. You can generate that same amount of clean energy by putting it on individual homes, individual schools, government offices, and you put them in parking lots and like hot places, that will actually help the planet too, because those parking lots are creating all this extra heat, right? Isn't that right, scientist?
His answer during the debate was actually pretty good on that. You might consider playing that.
Who has a strong environmental record and a larger commitment to the environment than I do. It's what I've been doing for 40 years. I believe climate change is existential, but I don't insist other people believe that. And I think I focus, and I've always focused on market-based solutions, which I think are the most efficient, eliminating subsidies for the energy industry, particularly carbon. We give carbon $5.2 trillion in subsidies a year, and creating a national grid system that is robust enough to do long-haul transportation of electrons. And we turn every American into an energy entrepreneur, every home into a power plant with the cheapest, most efficient forms of energy. The market, we need to start by protecting habitat, our air, water, wetlands, soils. That's the most important thing you can do from climate. It's almost altogether ignored. President Biden's program, which the Inflation Reduction Act, does a few good things, but the bulk of it is large subsidies to the oil industry and to BlackRock and other really sinister corporations for carbon capture, which is a boondoggle. Carbon capture is a boondoggle. We should not be funding it. We should not be encouraging it. We shouldn't be encouraging any kind of geoengineering of that kind. We should be focusing on restoring our soils, doing regenerative agriculture, protecting our air, our water, our wildlife, stopping the carbon discharge from coal-burning power plants, which are causing $500 billion in respiratory injuries annually, poisoning every freshwater fish in our country with mercury.
Sorry, your time is up. Back to CNN.
Yeah. See, that people will, I would love for that to become so mainstream. Regenerative farming is a term most people don't even know what that means. But it's basic, like, I have this, it's all about dirt, but it's also all about poop.
Poop. And rotation of crops, and
rotation of crops doesn't help if they don't have live animals pooping everywhere. If that's what they do now is rotate crops. So the regeneration includes the whole system. You don't have to buy fertilizer, you don't need anything, but you get the ducks and the geese, and then like it even can create a pond, like where there wasn't a pond. If you can restore enough of the ecosystem and the changes of things, somehow, like the documentaries I saw, like it restored this dead area into a little like pasture with a little like water, just by restoring everything, the plants and everything. The poop changed everything.
Wow. So
there's like Kiss the Ground is a really good one on that, a documentary, Kiss the Ground. But I wish that like everyone was required to see the show, the documentary, just the corporation, just on how a corporation itself works, because it's like we just keep letting it be, and we keep calling capitalism as if we're saying we're pro corporations. If you're poor and if you're anti-capitalist, like you're not going to survive in our political comment. There's no way to be an anti-capitalist now. It's too late. But if you're anti-corporation, that's a different thing than a capitalist, because the corporate laws, it's the laws that are set. If you want to gain a bunch of capital,
the loopholes are like the
big,
too. Like they get away with breaking the law.
The basic law,
with not being responsible.
The basic law, though, that you can be criminally liable for if you run a big corporation, you have board, you have stocks, and you make a call that's safer for people and the planet that costs the money company, you can lose your freedom. It's like you break the law to help people. in a corporation, and then that's okay. Just that alone. Then you add the loopholes, and you add the lobbying, you add the revolving door, the FDA and the CDC and all the housing and all
the bankruptcies, where they walk away and the town is destroyed. Everybody has cancer, but they walk away with no responsibility, and we pay for it.
Yeah, all of that, and there's no nuance. It's like, are these senators and stuff that talk about anti-cap, are they not smart enough to get like, it feels like our society can learn to understand these nuances. And socialism is here and it exists. And so we're all socialists. So stop it. Unless you want to cancel school and you want to cancel roads and you want to cancel the police department and you want to cancel the government agencies of all kinds, because it's all socialism. Like, there is no way that we're in a capitalist society. But what we do is we're going to have capitalism with freaking utilities where there is no free market, and then be like, oh, how dare we like subsidize that and make that a government thing, because that's anti-capitalism, that's socialism. Well, there is no way to have multiple power lines running into your home to compete on electric power. So there's no free market, but we're so afraid of being socialists that we're letting corporations be capitalists when they have a captured market. So to me, society doesn't understand what is capitalism, what is socialism, and where we are and who we are collectively. And so when they name call,
aren't we both? I mean,
exactly.
My impression of capitalism
totally
is like, you can't deny we're that either, because
we're totally both.
money
I'm
is
just
an
saying,
exchange. It's a necessary exchange in our current society. So like,
we're totally
and the reality is that's one of the things that, that's one of the way China has become very powerful, is because they didn't try to politically overcome, they economically overcome. And that's also something that that RFK is about. He's like, if we bring our economy back, and we can keep ourselves from destroying ourselves, because economically get strong. You don't have to bully, in his words, like bully other countries. You just work with them. You get yourself economically strong, and be okay with them being economically strong as well. By the way, we don't have to be the number one. We can be one of the many strong, happy countries on earth. After all, we all are people.